Are you listening? Damn.
All right, welcome to week 14 here on AFC North Talk. We're going to be previewing three very interesting matchups this week in the AFC North. Before I do that, let me introduce everyone. I am Tony Serino, Tony the Hater. If you watched yesterday's show, Steeler fans, I had a lot of things to say about the Steelers, not a lot of them positive. But let me introduce everybody else here. We have Ace Boogie from New Stripe City, who not only represents the Cincinnati Bengals, he is also now our resident draft expert. Ace, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good, man. Checking out my mock drafts, looking at free agency, hoping that there's no injuries, but I'm doing all right.
Let me know if there's any good running backs this year. Steelers might be in the market for one coming up. I also have Quincy Carrier representing the Cleveland Browns. Quincy, how are you?
Don't help Tony. Don't help Tony. Don't ever help Tony.
The Steelers need a lot of help. They're gonna listen. They're hurting right now. They lost a game. Can you believe it? They lost.
Bengals fans and Browns fans have a lot of beef with each other, but the one thing we have in common is that we both hate you equally. So we're not about to help the Steelers.
Feeling the love. All right. Also, we have Sonny from SDG Sports. Sonny, how are you?
Hey man, I'm ready to get this thing going, man.
It's a big week for the Ravens and Browns. We're certainly going to be talking about that Monday Night Football matchup. We'll get to that later on. That's our marquee matchup of the day. Let's start though with the Andy Dalton revenge game special, Bengals Cowboys. Ace, how you feeling about this one?
Just when you thought that it couldn't get worse.
Oh, no.
Just when you thought after losing Joe Burrow, you lose Jonah Williams.
Oh no.
Here comes Blandy Dalton here to blast us out of this atmosphere. It's gonna be bad. It's gonna be bad. But honestly, at this point, the Cowboys are bad as well, right? They really don't have anything to fight for. They can try, but they're pretty much out of it. But Andy Dalton's coming back to get some revenge. So I say, Andy, go ahead and have a day. Let's get Zac Taylor out of there. Let's just make it so embarrassing that they have to do something after the game. Probably not going to happen. But honestly, at this point, these teams are just planning to just play. Honestly, I think both coaches in this situation, you talk about Zac Taylor, you talk about Mike McCarthy, both on the hot seat, both pretty high in the Vegas odds to get canned after this season. So we'll have to see with both of these coaches' jobs on the line, which teams are going to come out swinging, especially where there were reports weeks back about Taylor and McCarthy about their locker rooms not believing in these coaches. Yeah. So very interesting to see how this plays out. I think that the Cowboys are going to win this game, though. And I think that for one reason, I think that Zac Taylor's offense, there is no confidence in it whatsoever. We talked about the most exciting play was Tyler Boyd. Tyler Boyd literally had to make that catch and score a touchdown. And that was like the majority of the offense there. And then you also talk about T. Higgins. I'm not sure if he's going to be back in this game. He tried to hurdle a guy after making a catch. And then you talk about the quarterback situation. I assume Brandon Allen's going to be playing. If not, it's Ryan Finley, which you know how that goes. It's Ryan Finley. So at this point, the Bengals, I think, will lose this game as well. Is it going to be a close game? I don't know. We'll have to see. I think there's going to be a lot of Bengals fans that are happy to have Dalton back. It's going to be a weird dynamic, right? Because there were a lot of Dalton lovers, which is what I refer to them as, pro Andy Dalton guys that didn't want to move on from him, but obviously that ended up doing it. And that's because he gave back a lot to the community. So he is a great person. It's kind of hard to hate on Andy Dalton, honestly, with all he did for the Cincinnati community. It'll be interesting to see the ovation. I'm sure he'll get one with however many fans they have there. I'm sure he'll get one. But it's going to be interesting because you got some Bengals fans that are just like, let's just keep losing so we can make sure that we solidify this pick. And then you got some people that are like, hey, I still want to win. I'm at this point where I'm just like, whatever it takes for Zac Taylor to be out of there and for us to secure that left tackle of the future is what I'm down with. And I respect either side, but I don't think it makes you a real fan either way, whichever you want. Because I'm looking long term. Some people just want to win. I mean, it's been a while. It definitely affects the morale of the fan base. But you got to hang in there and let this season play out. So with that said, I still think the Cowboys win this game. And I hope that they show that Zac Taylor's offense is so bad that he cannot even score against one of the worst defenses in football.
It would be. I mean, this is certainly a revenge game for Andy Dalton. I mean, you have to imagine he would love to be the one to put Zac Taylor out of a job, considering that, remember, Zac Taylor last year waited until after the trade deadline to bench Andy Dalton. I know that didn't sit right with Dalton at the time, and certainly I know going into this game, it's gonna be extra motivation for him. Sonny, you're a big trenches guy. Not a lot to like in the trenches here in this matchup. Now, two bad offensive lines, two bad defensive lines. But how do you see this game playing out?
Yeah, there might be no sacks, not because the offensive lines are any good. It's just because, the defensive lines are not that much better. Look, this is a game that whoever loses, whoever the coach is on the losing side, and it might be a tie, right? Who knows? But
wouldn't be the first time for the Bengals.
Yeah, it would be the first time.
So whoever loses this game, that coach should be fired after that game, right? It should be like, why you finish the season, just go, right? If Brendan Allen plays, the Bengals have a shot. But Mixon is not playing, right? So with Mixon, I would have been confident that the Bengals can take this game. I like Gio, but Gio's not a guy that just carries your team on the running side. And the thing is, with Brandon Allen there, if he's there, the defensive line from the Cowboys, although there's a lot of money in there, right, with D-line and all those guys, they're not generating pressure really. And if your receivers are there, there's going to be plays to be made. So I think the Bengals actually have a shot against this Cowboys team, more on the passing side. And then the running defense is so bad that you still could be running in that game. So saying all that, I think the Bengals are showing heart. Every week, I think the Bengals are just going to be there laying down. And no, they're showing heart, especially on the defensive side. They have been playing good lately. The Cowboys offense is not great, right? So I'm actually, Ace, you're not going to like this, but I think the Bengals might pull this game. And if the Bengals pull this game out, I don't know, man. You might have to be with Taylor for one more year.
It's sounding bad because there's reports right now saying that they are leaning towards keeping them, which is horrible and a mistake.
Yeah. They're in that weird situation where it's like, you don't want to admit your mistake at this point. Quincy, how about you? How do you see this game playing out?
Admit the mistake, bro. But I mean, like, imagine if the Browns didn't admit their mistake with Freddie Kitchens, right? But I actually do think the Bengals are going to win this game for a couple of reasons, right? I don't know. Is Joe Mixon playing?
No. Joe Mixon is not playing. But
Brandon Allen looks like he is playing.
Zac Taylor is just like the Steelers when it comes to running the ball.
Oh, you just ain't going to do it?
Just ain't going to do it.
The Steelers are bad at it, though. I mean, remember, the Steelers are bad at running the ball.
That defense for Dallas is just so bad, and they just look so, like, destroyed mentally in a way that the Bengals aren't. And also, like, the X factor is like Andy Dalton has stakes on this game, and that's ultimately what made me though. Yeah, the Cowboys ain't winning this game. If Andy Dalton has something to prove, he never wins. Like, honest to God, he never. I remember having this argument with somebody. In 2014, I was in college. This guy is a Cincinnati Bengals fan. He was telling me, Quincy, you sleeping on Andy Dalton? Andy Dalton, a big time player. He gonna make some big time plays. I remember going through Andy Dalton's Wikipedia and being like, yo, he lost the Texas State Championship when he was in it. Played a terrible game, by the way, in the state championship. Went to TCU, ran through TCU when they were like in the Conference USA. Finally got to like a Fiesta Bowl, blew that, played terrible, and blew every playoff game and primetime game he's ever been in. And I told him, like I'm pretty sure you have told Bengals fans, that man is what he is. That man is who he is. That man does not show up whenever he is needed to show. If this was like a random game against like the Browns at 1 o'clock, like where they had no shot, they would definitely show up in that situation, or at least Andy Dalton would. But now it's like, is this at Cincinnati as well?
Yeah, I think it's in
Cincinnati.
Yeah,
he's definitely not about to show up. He's about to remind y'all why y'all drafted Joe Burrow.
And that's play on Tuesday, guys, too. Remember, they're in a short week.
Yeah.
I mean, like, that doesn't factor in, like, I mean, Andy Dalton's at that point where he's Andy Dalton, dog. Like, like short week, long week, doesn't matter. Like, are you really more afraid? Like, but yeah, there's stakes on this game. No, there's no way Andy Dalton's about to come in there in Cincinnati and be clutch and just like show up. Like, when is he ever, like, that would be so frustrating if I were a Bengals fan and this happened to me. Because when has he ever done that? Like, hey, tell me, has he ever done that? Like, has he in his entire career? Dating back to high school football, I don't know when he's had a game where it's like, y'all was sleeping on Andy Dalton and he showed y'all. Like, it's always like, oh, well, it was against like the 0-16 Browns. Yeah, he tore them up. And even the Browns just tear them up. The one year they went 7-9. They tore that man up on Thursday Night Football. He was like, everybody just relax. And then he gave up 14 more points right after that. So it was just, come on now. Andy Dalton ain't about to show up and do something big against the Bengals when he's expected to. He's about to blow this thing for the Bengals one more time. So y'all can't draft Penny or however you say his last name. He's about to do it for y'all one more again. Andy Dalton, he's going to throw like 3 interceptions to Jesse Bates. Also, you got to remember the Bengals defense has actually not been bad
they haven't been.
few weeks. And you know, Andy Dalton's due up for some interceptions. Like I was surprised he didn't throw that many against the Ravens.
Against Baltimore. Yeah, I'm with you.
He's due.
I think I'm with you and Sonny. I'm with you guys. I think the Bengals are going to win this football game, and I've been trying to look at reasons why. And there's so many reasons you could say against it. I mean, the Cowboys' offense with all the weapons that they have with Zeke and CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup. Right? I mean, you know that offense. You know they have a ton of firepower there. And if Andy Dalton wants to have a revenge game and he comes out, you know, all pissed off and ready to go, then they can do it. But yeah, see, the Quincy laughing is exactly right. That's why I just can't imagine that world.
I can't be afraid of them.
Right. I can't do that. I cannot bring myself. And you guys talked about, you know, the Bengals defense hasn't been bad. I mean, look, yeah, they've given up 20 points a game in the last 3. Right. I know points are not a great stat, right? You know, because the you know, like look at that Dolphins game. The Dolphins moved the ball with regularity. They just kicked field goals instead of touchdowns. And then the Bengals offense is trash. You know, Brandon Allen. Brandon Allen's going to play, which is why I'm probably going to end up picking the Bengals here, because if this were Finley, okay, even Andy Dalton can beat Ryan Finley.
It'll be a terribly quarterback game, but you know,
yeah, exactly. And then you know, okay, I think like you guys said, I think the Bengals should have some success running the football, but Joe Mixon's not walking through that door. I mean, there's still going to be Gio Bernard. I'm going to pick the Bengals. I am, because for all the reasons we talked about. I just cannot believe that Andy Dalton in this big, you know, what is quote unquote a big game for him, this revenge game, is actually going to come up big. I think he comes up small, and I think the Bengals win one that they don't even want to. So I'm with you guys. We have 3.
Both GMs for these teams are rooting for the teams to lose, right? Let's acknowledge that, because both of them will won. Dallas knows we ain't winning this division.
Yeah, at this point, I think Dallas has to give up on the division. Yeah,
so right on that. Both of them want as high as a pick as possible. Dallas also needs alignment. Let's be honest. Smith, the left tackle, I think he's done. He's been injured for the past couple of years. So whoever loses might get that tackle that they so coveted.
I feel so bad for y'all.
One thing I want to ask, Sonny, not to switch gears too much, but Dallas is in a unique situation, right? Like, if they get up high enough, should they go for a quarterback? Like, they've got Dak Prescott. With him having that serious injury, like, I know we usually keep it AFC North, but that's like an interesting dynamic, is it not? Like, if they're high enough to get a quarterback, what should they do?
Yeah, because they can't go back-to-back franchise tags, right? Because it becomes
it's 38. If they franchise him, it gets 38 point something. So
I guess it's not terrible.
But wait. There's no quarterback in this draft that's better than Dak Prescott. I'm
right.
That would be
coming off injury, and you have to pay him a ton of money.
But not Fields. I don't know why Fields is so high on
Justin. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, Justin Fields is not even comparable.
Oh, nothing.
To Dak Like, there's nobody comparable to Dak Prescott. And even Trevor Lawrence, like, that's like, hey, you got to commit to changing your offense and doing something like the Cardinals or the Ravens do with that guy. Like, he's not a pro style ready quarterback day one, not at all. And it's like, if you like what the Cowboys want is for everybody to overvalue these quarterbacks, which during this whole situation when defenses are as bad as possible, I don't know if you guys watch any college football, it's worse down there. So there's going to be a ton of fool's gold at the quarterback position that teams are going to be ready to draft on. So if I'm the Cowboys, you re-sign Dak and you get a ransom for whatever team is stupid enough to trade up there because they think they can get a quarterback. The problem is price of the quarterback went down because who's really looking for a quarterback that desperately anymore? That doesn't already have the
Steelers could be if Ben retires.
I mean,
Steelers aren't stupid enough to trade, you know, for like the quarterback from BYU or something like that.
Yeah.
Like
Zach Wilson. I like Zach Wilson. I actually really like Zach Wilson.
I actually think that the Fields is very overrated. I don't know. I don't like him.
I haven't watched enough of him.
I watched a couple of Ohio State football. I have not been.
You ever watched Dwayne Haskins?
Yeah.
You've seen Justin Fields. It's the same story.
Really?
Oh, yeah. The Ohio State fans are about to be in my mentions because they hate when I talk about Justin Fields.
We do not produce great quarterbacks. Like,
He's not that.
We're Ohio State fans, me and Quincy.
You know who I really like? We're going to go to – I loved Cardale Jones. I thought Cardale Jones was going to be a great NFL player.
I grew up around Cardale Jones, and I knew for a fact he would never be a good NFL quarterback because the things that you need to be a good NFL quarterback that are not physical, Cardale, not that committed to those things, respectfully.
No, he loves to play football. That's cool.
Yeah, he goes out there to slang that thing on the field, and that's it. He's not really out here trying to learn zone coverages and the nuance. He was never somebody who you would worry about becoming a coach, and that ultimately was the downfall of Cardale's NFL career and his XFL career, which went up in flames before the pandemic, unfortunately.
Ooh, yeah. Good Lord. All right, let's move on here. Let's talk about my Pittsburgh Steelers. They are facing the Buffalo Bills on Sunday Night Football. Big game. This game is in Buffalo. Weather may play a factor here. There's a good chance of snow in the forecast. Obviously, I'm Tony the Hater today, so I had nothing good to say about my Steelers. So I'm going to go last year. I'm going to give you guys an opportunity. Talk me off the ledge here. You guys were all much more positive than I was about the Steelers yesterday. So, Sonny, I'll start with you. Steelers, Bills, is there hope for the Steelers that they can turn it around against a good Buffalo team?
Let me tell you something. If it snows, you're going to take a big L because you can't run the ball right now, right? So it's not great, right? And then your receivers on good conditions are dropping balls. So it's a perfect storm if the weather's that bad, right? I mean, I'm not saying the Steelers are going to be a pushover. Allen has been hot lately, but I can see Allen coming down to earth also that quick, right? The key for the Steelers, if they want to win this game or if they're going to win this game, is pressure Allen. Pressure Allen and make him make that mistake, right? Make them one-dimensional and make them make that mistake. The Buffalo Bills receivers are not big, but they're fast and shifty. And they can hit you for a big game. But again, if conditions are not great, although Allen has the arm to push it down the field, doesn't mean that he's accurate pushing down the field. So the Steelers have a chance. But, if it is bad conditions, this is where the running game needs to come out for the Steelers. And it hasn't come out for weeks, not for weeks, for the whole year, right? For the whole year. And this is not a Connor thing. Even if Connor was here, it's not that Connor has been producing, right? He's been producing more than Benny Snell and McFarland. But it's not like Connor is like, okay, he has been the guy. No, the Steelers have not had any push. The Buffalo's defense is not great. That's the one thing that gives the Steelers saving grace. But the other side is the Steelers' offense hasn't been great either, right? You can say, yes, Cincinnati. You can say against Jacksonville. Yeah, they get those two games. And those two games they were cooking. And they will get you some big plays here and there. But overall in the game, the Steelers' offense is not there. And they tend to start slow. And Buffalo's a good team. Not only because of their record, they're just a good team, and offensively they're good. I don't know. I've been looking into this game. It's like, okay, can the Steelers pull this off? Well, I like I said, if conditions are bad, I really think that doesn't pour well how the Steelers are playing right now. Steelers need good conditions for the style of ball they're playing. And I'm discouraged how the defense give the win to the W team, right? Especially when they're winning by 2 touchdowns. Against a very lesser offense on the team, right? So I'm going to go with Buffalo here, Tony. And sorry to say, not sorry really, to say that Buffalo is probably going to win. I don't think it's going to be a blowout, though. I think it's going to be probably by 9.
Okay.
Pick the score by 9 points.
I do want
your kicker. Is your kicker still?
I haven't seen the practice report from today. He did not practice yesterday. Okay. So I'll look that up here. We got a super chat here from the Trib. Appreciate it, Trib. He writes in and say, got the Steelers get right game 34-21. Wow, Steelers scoring 34. I would love it. Cowboys should let Dak go, and I think Dak's a top 15 QB, but their roster isn't, so they need to rebuild. Interesting thoughts there. I would love, by the way, I would love for the Steelers to put up 30 points in a game right now. So that's exactly what this team needs. Quincy, your thoughts. Can the Steelers put up 30 against the Buffalo Bills?
I don't know if they put up 30, but I think the question more or less is how much pressure can you get and how much can you make up for the massive losses at middle linebacker for the Pittsburgh Steelers? That's going to be the true question, right? Because I think you're going to be able to penetrate and get to Josh Allen. But just because and this is like Big Ben of old, right? Just because you get to Josh Allen does not mean you get Josh Allen on the ground. And that's where you would love to have Devin Bush, who's a little bit bigger out there, or even a Spillane, who's a guy who could more of a short tackler in that respect. If he gets back there, this is a tough one, right? Because Josh Allen has been freaky good this year, like in a way that I haven't expected him to be, but I don't know how real that is or if he's just street. There's just not enough information on him yet. We know that he's a good quarterback. We just don't know what kind of good quarterback he is. And then when you look on the other side of the ball, it's going to be popular to poop on Pittsburgh, right? Because they lost the game to the team with no name. But, there's still a fairly good passing offense, and Chase Claypool has not had a big game like he's had in a while. So I feel like he's due up for one. And the Bills are a team that are very inconsistent when it comes to defense, especially against the run. So it might be a situation where Tomlin finally feels comfortable running the ball a little bit more than like 12 times a game to find some consistency there. And the Bills are bad enough at it at times that it might be able to get some production there. But again, this is a Steelers team that had 2.6 yards per carry against maybe the worst run defense of all time with 18 carries against the Cowboys. Yeah. So it's just so hard to get a handle on both of these teams because sometimes the Bills look like amazing and sometimes they lose to a Tennessee team that didn't practice all week, and lose by a heavy margin. Same thing with the Steelers. Sometimes the Steelers the Steelers haven't looked amazing any point during the season, but they look really good during some points of this season. And then at other points, they look like a team that's really one-dimensional on offense and that, if they don't get home with that pressure, they have a lot of problems on defense because they just have all these holes in their coverages for whatever reason for a team that shouldn't have them. So I think this is going to be a close game. It's going to be fair weather there in Buffalo. I checked for you, Sonny. It's like 44 degrees. So I don't think that's going to become a factor. And I want to lean towards Buffalo, but I just have a hard time believing the Steelers are going to drop 2 games in a row after starting 11-0. So I'm going to go with Pittsburgh. It would seem like pretty Pittsburghy to get a get-right game here and win, and probably win comfortably, not like by a blowout margin, but win comfortable enough to where people, where they're going to fire off some memes next week because everybody was like clowning them for a whole week because they lost to the team.
Let's be honest, Q has been the Steelers whisperer. So
I love it. Listen, I need it. I'm ready to put the Jets back on.
That streak got broken though, Tony, against the team. I did not see that. I did not see that one coming. Did not see it coming.
No, and I think that's the problem right now for the Steelers is that it seemed like, it felt like, well, okay, that was a weird game against Baltimore, but they'll turn it around. And then, I don't think anybody, Ace, you were the one really that was calling out that, hey, this may be a closer game against Washington. So how do you see Pittsburgh-Buffalo playing out?
This is an interesting matchup. And Vegas, I think right now has Buffalo favored by 1 to win this game. And it's very close. Whenever you see that with Vegas, they think that it's pretty much a toss-up and they're trying to push people to go either way. This is a tough game because these teams, in terms of their quarterback, they kind of mirror each other, right? We talk about Josh Allen, a big guy, hard to bring down, has a big arm on him, and similar to Big Ben. It's very interesting to see how this is going to really plan out. Now, we saw that Bud Dupree was lost last week. TJ Watt was still able to get a sack, and we've seen his backup, I think Spillane or something like that, come in and fill in somewhat decent.
It's Highsmith, yeah.
Highsmith, I'm sorry. Highsmith, the kid out of Maryland, correct?
Charlotte.
Oh, God.
Charlotte. Yeah.
So it seems like they're still able to get some pressure there. But the interesting thing is, although, like Sonny said, the Buffalo Bills defense isn't that great, they're still good at rushing the passer as well. So I think that this still somewhat comes down to the trenches a little bit. And I think Buffalo actually has a sneaky wide receiver core. Early in the season, I talked to one of their fans, and I was like, I'm looking at these receivers, Cole Beasley. Obviously, I love Stephon Diggs. I look at all the other guys, and I'm like, nah, Marquise Brown. I mean, not Marquise Brown, but what's the guy's name? What's his name?
They call him Smokey Brown.
Smokey Brown.
John Brown. You know about John Brown?
John Brown.
John Brown.
John Brown. They used to play for the exactly. John Brown. So you think at first look, it's like these guys are like bums. Like there's no way it's just Stephon Diggs and a bunch of bums, but they're not. They're actually very good, and they're very shifty. They're very unique. They're very quick. And if you aren't paying attention to them in coverage, then they can present an issue. And I think the Steelers have had some issues in the secondary. So I think because of that, this is going to be a close game. I really see this being close, but I had to think about what Quincy said. I'm thinking about the Steelers. This was also a game where the Steelers have to bounce back. Mike Tomlin, his message, I'm pretty sure he was frustrated. They dropped one. They have to show that they can come back and go out here and win this game. And so I think that is going to be close. And I think the Bills have a chip on their shoulder as well. A lot of people didn't pick them to be the favorites in that 49ers game, and they took that seriously for sure.
Yeah,
they took it as a challenge. But I think that this is a bigger challenge. And I think the fact that Pittsburgh dropped that game to the team, they're going to be ready to go in there and try to get that win, try to get that narrative out of there that they're one of the worst 11-1 teams in the nation. I think that they're going to go into there and they're going to squeak it out with a win. But I think that this is going to be a really good game. I'm actually probably going to be excited to run this back and just see, because I think the Bills, even though they're doing pretty well, I don't think anyone's taking them as serious. So I think that this is definitely a game for them to really put their stamp on it. So I think this is going to be a Pittsburgh game, unfortunately. I want to go with the Buffalo Bills. If the Steelers didn't drop this last one, I would say Bills all the way. But I think the Steelers are going to come out and bounce back on this. And especially with Vegas keeping it that close, I think it's going to be a Steelers win.
We have a super chat here from, it looks like, is that Microsoft Culture TV? I'm going to say Microsoft Culture. MX. Yeah. So he says, I smell an upset coming. Buffalo over Pittsburgh.
Somebody said Buffalo's favorite.
I think I'm going to pick Buffalo on this one as well. Look, we talk about the idea that this Steeler team can't play this poorly right back-to-back weeks, but like I said yesterday, yesterday or what happened on Monday night against Washington was not like an aberration for this team. They've been playing poorly enough to lose plenty of times this year, and it just finally came back to bite them. They didn't make the plays at the end. That ball got tipped, and Washington made the play there. And I agree. There's a lot of people in chat saying, "Hey, if the Steelers had just caught some passes, they would have won that game." And I agree with that. But they didn't. They went from dropping 6 passes against Baltimore to 8 against Washington. That's not a problem. That just is going to get fixed overnight. I mean, they tried to fix it in that short week they had, and it didn't get any better. In fact, it got worse. And the offensive issues here, obviously, you guys talk about the running game. Yes, I mean, I don't believe right now that the running game is something you can fix in 6 days. I don't think that that's the problem, because I think that the problem for the Pittsburgh right now is that the offensive tendencies, and Chase Young said this after the game, like Baltimore exposed some things. We knew it was coming. And, a lot of people make fun of that because, like, hell yeah, you knew that they were going to drop 8 passes. You knew that, you're going to get a tip intercept. Like, like there was a lot of fluky stuff in that game. But I do think what they're trying to say is they know when it's going to be run or pass. Because when the Steelers go jumbo set, when they bring in those Vance McDonald, the extra tight ends, they generally run the football in those situations. When they spread you out, they generally throw the football. And so when you're obvious like that offensively, you can it's very easy to stack the box against the jumbo set and shut down your running game. And then it all comes down to Ben Roethlisberger and this wide receiver core. And we just haven't seen the level of consistency that we did early in the year. I love to see this team run more play action. I think this is the perfect time if the Steelers were ever going to break play action out in this playbook. Now is the time, because teams feel like they have that tendency on you. Hey, I know when it's going to be run. I know when it's going to be passed. This is the time to break out the play action stuff. They run play action the least of anyone in the league. And then I look at the route tree that they're asking these receivers to run. Steeler fans have been saying all year, hey, this short, quick catch and run style is nice, but at some point you got to break out the intermediate stuff. You got to break out the deep stuff. Look at Juju Smith-Schuster. Juju Smith-Schuster right now has the second lowest yards per catch in the National Football League. I believe it's 8.4. He's going to set a record if this continues, because the next lowest is Larry Fitzgerald, and Larry Fitzgerald is not going to be lowest in the league for much longer. So this team has to allow guys like Juju and Claypool, like you said, Quincy, to go down the field more often. Make teams respect you deep down the field. Otherwise, the teams are going to sit on these short routes, and this offense is going to have a tough time moving the football. Defensively, I think Vince Williams, by the way, on the C list today. So that's going to be a problem for them at inside linebacker, where they're already losing Devin Bush and Robert Spillane. Now they're down Vince Williams. So they're down both their starters and their one capable backup. The next guy on the list here is Marcus Allen, who is a converted safety to linebacker. They'll also play Avery Williamson, who they got from the Jets. but I don't know that they're gonna want to play those guys for extended minutes in this game. And so you might see the Steelers go to like a 4-3 in this game. You might see Terrell Edmonds come down and play some linebacker. I'll be interested to see how Keith Butler dials this up now. No, I mean, they are super thin at inside linebacker. But having said that, I do kind of like this matchup for the Steeler defense. You know, the Bills are not a good running team. The Steelers are very good against the run. So it's all about Josh Allen, and can you slow down what Josh Allen represents in that passing game and his ability to run. The Steelers do a very good job and have done a good job this year of taking away number one options, right? You look at what Terry McLaurin did on Monday. He did a whole lot of nothing. But that did open things up for someone like Logan Thomas, right? We've seen this in the past. Zach Ertz basically had no impact in that Eagles game, but Travis Fulgham had a big game, right? Mark Andrews got shut down, but Willie Snead had a big game. And, guys like OBJ and Tyler Boyd, Amari Cooper, right? All pedestrian. So Stephon Diggs is going to be a big factor for this game, but I think the Steelers can do a good job rolling coverage his way. Go ahead, Ace.
One thing I wanted to ask you is Joe Hayden out this game? I know
Joe Hayden is out. Yeah. So Joe Hayden is out. Cam Sutton will start again, but Steven Nelson will come back. So remember, Steven Nelson didn't play on Monday. So Nelson is back. Hayden is down. So the Steelers basically just flop corners there. The matchup I like, though, because, we talk about shutting down Stephon Diggs. That's one thing. But Cole Beasley's having a great year. You guys talked about, the shiftiness of this receiving core. Cole Beasley, a big part of that. I like the matchup. Mike Hilton, who was great on Monday night. I like the matchup there. Mike Hilton versus Cole Beasley. And so what the Steelers are going to want to do is look, if someone like a Gabriel Davis is going to come up big in this game, John Brown is on IR right now, so he won't actually play. But Gabriel Davis has made some plays this year. If he's going to beat the Steelers, that to me, if I'm Keith Butler, if I'm Mike Tomlin, I live with that, right? If that's the guy you're going to go to, or I forget their tight end's name, but Dawson Knox. That's Dawson Knox. Yeah, If Dawson Knox beats the Steelers, if he goes, lights them up for 110 or whatever, okay, you live with that. But don't let Stephon Diggs beat you. Don't let Cole Beasley beat you. And the other thing is, you got to be disciplined in your pass rush, because Josh Allen, like Quincy talked about, you think you got him, and this guy will kick off and get some yards down the field. He's their second leading rusher this year. Josh Allen is. So, they're going to have to be disciplined in that way. I think the reason why I'm picking the Bills in this game, though, is this comes down to Brian Daboll, the Bills offensive coordinator, versus Randy Fichtner. Daboll has been, he could be coach of the year or coordinator of the year, right? With what he's done with Josh Allen this year and turning him into, like Quincy said, a top quarterback in the NFL right now. And Randy Fichtner's offense, which looked nice early in the year, is sputtering, and he has no answers to it. And I just don't know that in 6 days' time that this offense is going to fix all of the problems that they have. So I'll take the Bills. I'll take the Bills in a close one here. But I'm losing faith that this team, that the Steelers, the problems that they have right now can be fixed in such a short window. And now we move on to the marquee matchup in the AFC North, Browns-Ravens Part 2. It feels like it was 6 years ago that it was week 1 when these two teams last played. It feels like forever. Quincy, I will start with you. Browns Ravens, huge game for the Browns, 9-3. They just got by the Titans, right? So all of a sudden the Browns are getting talked about as a playoff contender now. All of this, you worry at all that changes immediately if they lose this game to Baltimore?
Q, can we take the super chat just so we can?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, He wrote in again. He said it's pronounced misfit, so that's my bad. But MSFT is Microsoft, just for everyone, if everyone does stocks. He says for SCG, even though the Ravens are favored Monday, does a Cleveland upset scare you? And for Quincy, dog check.
Shout out. So here is my read of this game. I think Baltimore's a little bit better of a matchup for Cleveland. For against Cleveland than the Titans were. I didn't think the Titans were a great matchup against the Browns, and I went into that in detail last week. This week, I think there are some issues for Baltimore, but it's all going to be dependent on which Baltimore team shows up. That's really the thing, right? On paper, you look at this Baltimore team, they have everything that should make the Browns offense have some struggles, right? They have the strong defensive line on paper. They have, the strong secondary on paper, the strong running game on paper. Like everything on paper says that the Ravens should be able to fare well against the Cleveland Browns. But the problem with the Ravens, much like the 2019 Browns, is that they have not been able to translate what they have on paper into on-field success this year consistently. It's not as bad as the 2019 Browns, but it has not been as consistent. So for this game, on offense for the Ravens. I think the outside zones, I don't think that's going to be there. The outside, the off tackle runs that they love to do with Lamar and everything there. The Browns did a pretty good job defending that when they played like dirt at the beginning of the season. I don't see that changing. They just came off of a performance where they handled that specific type of run very well versus Derrick Henry, who's the best at it in the NFL. I don't see that changing when you have a healthy Myles Garrett. And then you're bringing back Denzel Ward more than likely. And Denzel Ward, not really known about him as well as being a terrific coverage player. He's pretty good in run defense as well, despite his size not being that big. He's actually critical when it comes to the edge. I think he's going to be very helpful when it comes to trying to get Lamar on the ground this week. So that I don't think is going to be there. The question for Baltimore is the difference in 2019 and the difference in 2020 is Baltimore in 19 was able to get those 5-6 yard gashes at will with Mark Ingram, right up the middle. Whenever they wanted to go a dive off that RPO look, they were able to get those 6 yards off of and whenever they wanted, and that changed how defenses had to defend him, which let Mark Andrews be wide open, and then the outside pool be wide open on that RPO. It was a headache when they had that inside dive working at that level. This year, it just has not been there. The only time I've seen it happen was against the Cowboys. We know what kind of defense the Cowboys have. It's really been a struggle with the interior defensive line where they have not been able to get those gashes at will up the middle. Mark Ingram or Gus Edwards. Gus Edwards, pretty good running back, but it just has not been there as consistently. And to beat the Browns, one of the things you have to be able to do is run the ball up the middle. You can be terrible on the edges like the Steelers. The Steelers are still able to run the ball up the middle on the Cleveland Browns. So that's one of the things. The other thing is the defensive line for the Ravens, right? The one thing you need, and the reason I don't like the Steelers as a matchup in the playoffs or, even in week 17 is because the Steelers can pass rush. They can penetrate on the defensive line. If you can do that, you have a good chance at stopping what the Browns can do offensively. The problem with the Ravens is that they get it there some ways, and in the run game, they can do it more consistently, but that pass rush just hasn't been there. It just hasn't been there consistently. And if you can't rush the passer against the Cleveland Browns, even if you can stop the run, I don't think you're going to be able to stop the offense because, again, Baker wasn't even awful that first week against the Ravens. He wasn't great, but he wasn't awful, and they weren't running the same offense. So we'll see what happens on that front. But my basic theory is, hey, look, if the Ravens team if the Ravens come out with that same effort that they had against the Steelers, they might win this game. But if they come out playing like they did against the Cowboys, which is good but not great, they're not going to win this game. They're not going to win the game playing like that. I was watching that Cowboys game. I was like, this is something Cleveland can defend very easily. The outside zone run, they can stop that. And then, whatever they could do with their wide receivers, if Denzel Ward comes back, that's not going to be there. We could talk about how weak the Browns secondary is. And that's true to a certain extent, especially the last 2 weeks without Denzel Ward. But when Denzel Ward is there, it ain't the same story with the secondary. What you're going to do with Willie Snead on Denzel Ward or, God forbid, Marquise Brown on I would actually be upset if that happened because that'd be a waste of Denzel Ward at that point. I just don't know what Ravens team is going to show up, so I'm a little hesitant. But if the Ravens team that has been the Ravens all this year shows up, the Browns can get some turnovers. The Browns can push them behind the sticks. The Browns can slow that offense down, and the Browns will be able to score on the other side. I don't think it's going to be a blowout, but I think the Browns can win a close game out because I think a lot of the matchups favor them if the Ravens team from 2020 comes there. Now, if 2019 Ravens shows up, that's a whole different game. That's a whole different matchup problem, but they ain't showed up all year, so I can't just expect them to show up because it's the Browns.
Ace, let's save this one for a second. Let's let Sonny go on this game, and then we'll get to Josh's super chat there. Sonny, your thoughts on Cleveland?
On Joshua, and then
right.
Go.
Okay.
You can answer a question.
Yeah, it says, do you think Burrow getting injured is going to give Zac Taylor a pass from being fired this season?
Unfortunately, I think that it is. I think if you would have had Joe Burrow and we would have lost more games, or they end the season with, let's say, 3 wins instead of like 5 or 6, then yeah, I think he gets canned. But I think that gives them the benefit of the doubt to give him a pass. I did hear that they said that they were going to give him 5 games or something like that with Joe Burrow to kind of fully evaluate him. So unfortunately, I think that the injury has given them an excuse to keep him.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think Zac Taylor keeps his job because of the fact that Burrow got hurt. Because I don't know that they were going to win many more games with Burrow, but now he has the excuse of, hey, I lost my franchise quarterback. What do you expect? All right, Sonny, your thoughts on Browns and Ravens? This is, of course, the Ravens' toughest test left on their schedule. It's pretty much a playoff game for this team.
I agree. So let me start with this. I think Browns fans, for the most part, misunderstood my comments a couple of weeks ago when I was saying that the Browns were basically the only challenge. As I was trying to refer was the Browns is that game that if you win, you're looking good to be in the playoffs. But they're that team trying to prevent you to be in the playoffs. The rest of them, although now you had New York, on the maybe ascent, we'll see. Might have been that it was just the one game. But if you look at the schedule, the Browns are the game that if you look at the schedule, that is the team that we need to beat, right? Because the rest of the team are inferior than the Browns. So if anything, I was giving props to the Browns. I don't know why they got into their feelings so much, but whatever. Let me say here to the trip, says, my mind's telling me Brown, but my body's telling me Ravens. I got Ravens. O-line last 2 weeks has looked better, but Cowboys don't play deep. So who knows? I'm assuming that's what that means.
Yep.
Okay. Look, this is a game that is very interesting. Browns are a good team. Browns offensively is that team that we thought they were going to be 2 years ago, right? When they put OBJ and all these weapons together. And for all the Bengals fan that we have here, this is what our O-line does to you. There's no good quarterback if there's not a good O-line. There's not. It doesn't matter. Your quarterback can be great. If it's always full of pressure, they're not going to be successful. Saying that, the O-line for the Cleveland Browns still keeps playing great, right? And the Ravens are not good putting pressure, especially just rushing 4 or 5. And Ngakoue, you can kind of see him once or twice in a game presenting pressure, and that's about it on a non-blitz situation. But other than that, the Ravens said that is a problem. So let me start with this. If the Ravens don't put pressure on Baker, I don't care if we shut down Chubb. Baker's going to pick you apart because Baker's playing good. And not only that, there's only so much a corner can do. You can't hold those receivers, right? So if you're giving a quarterback 4 seconds, the receivers are going to get open. And the Cleveland Browns, and I'm going to say this, I don't know how hot of a take this is, they have the best receiver in the AFC North on Landry. I'll say Boyd number 2. I'll say Landry number 1. Landry, not only that, Landry has dominated the Ravens in the past couple of games. Well, they'll have to go too far of a history. Go to the last 3 games, right? Let's go to the last 3 games. And Landry has always been good against the Ravens. I'm hoping, because there's no OBJ, they put Marlon Humphrey on Landry and say, you battle it out with him, which would be a great battle. Usually they put Humphrey on OBJ, and Humphrey has done a great job against OBJ. But I'm hoping they put it on Landry. We'll see. The other thing is, saying that Landry is a problem, you also have the Nick Chubb effect, right? Since Chubb came back from injury, this is when the Browns, in my opinion, has turned it on offensively. That helps the play action, and so the team that doesn't pressure, play action opens the pass a little bit more, plus running through the gut. Remember, the Ravens D-line has been hurt. The Brown or Williams and Campbell came back. Williams had a hell of a game, and he looked healthy. Campbell, not so much. He looks slow, and that's a problem. Now, I would say the C-list players, we basically got them all back. Let me turn it to the other side. The Ravens on offense. As bad as the Ravens have been against Jarvis Landry, equally as bad has been the Browns trying to defend Andrews. Andrews has been a guy that has been able to have success against the Cleveland Browns. And Andrews is coming back. If we didn't have Andrews, I don't know. I think Andrews has a lot of matchup problems against this Cleveland secondary. I don't think Hollywood Brown will do anything in this game. I think Snead will have his catches because Snead is more of a chain mover, and it helps having him back. He's usually short-handed. And third is the Ravens have been able to run through the gut, through that A gap consistently in the past couple of games. When they decided to say, okay, Ingram, you know what? We ain't gonna give you the ball anymore. We're just gonna run it with J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, and Lamar Jackson. And after that, they have had success running the ball between the A and B gap. And I agree with Quincy. Running right now a stretch run, especially on the direction where Myles Garrett is loose cost. And you will have to try it because you don't want to be one-dimensional, but it will be a loose cost. I think this is going to be a hell of a game, guys. I put out there all the problems the Browns present to the Ravens. And when I started here, I think the Ravens equally can present a lot of the problems. I think this is the main key. Put pressure on Baker. If you put pressure on Baker, you have a chance. And it's going to be with blitzes, right? It's going to be with blitzes. And then you're going to see you have to let your corners just man up and go with that. If you do not put pressure on Baker, then you are going to get picked up by Baker. But that Baker has played really good. Baker has played like a first overall pick, right? Lately, he has been playing. So we have to also acknowledge that. So saying all that, I think the Ravens also come to this game more desperate. They like Tony said, this is a playoff game to the Ravens. Yes, I know a lot of my Ravens fans, Sonny, we can make it with 10-6. There's two things I will say to that. First, you have a lot of teams to lose for you to make it. Second, you don't deserve to make it at 10-6. Both things are true. You need a lot of help, and second, you don't deserve to be making it 10-6 because you're gonna roll up against a bunch of low-level teams, right? So this is a playoff game. The Browns don't need this game as much as the Ravens, so I'm expecting the Ravens to come up with more heart. But also the Cleveland Browns want to make a statement to this game. So both things are true. It's in Cleveland. So we'll see. I think this game is going to be a tough one, a close one. I have the Ravens winning by 6.
We got some super chats to get to here. William writes in, the fact the Browns are relevant in any conversation is amazing. It's like watching a unicorn. The Browns are 2020 in a nutshell.
3 months to do this. Did we already? Come on. They've been over 500 for 3 months.
I will say it is one of the reasons, though, why I think Stefanski deserves credit for Coach of the Year. I will say that. All right, we have Rich writes in, Andrews, Judon, Snead, and Holden activated today. It seems like, yes, a lot of that.
Before you keep going with that,
yeah.
Holden, he was activated. They put him in the practice squad, and he said, I'm going to Indy. So by the way. And the rest of the guys, with Judon, we haven't been able to generate more pressure than without him. And Snead is a big factor because without Snead and Andrews, which was the past 2 weeks, those are basically your more short-handed guys for that intermediate game. Yeah. So those are big. I will acknowledge those two are big. Judon, it's not that he's not important, but for the pressure on Baker, he will have one here or there, but it's not a constant pressure.
Zac Taylor also is somebody who's on the close contact protocol, so he might not play. He might, but they're saying that he is going to play. But the one note to your Mark Andrews thing, Browns traditionally been terrible against the tight end. I will agree with you there. But since they have given Malcolm Smith more snaps, Malcolm Smith's been one of the best coverage linebackers in football as of late. Went up against 3 of the best receiving tight ends in football. I forget their names, but I did the whole research yesterday. It's in my notebook. And much better against tight ends since Malcolm Smith has gotten more snaps. So I'm interested to see how Mark Andrews does in that situation. Also, how Malcolm Smith holds up.
We got another super chat here from the Trib. Appreciated Trib. He writes, Yo, Q, do you think the Browns should hold on to OBJ or let him go now that Baker turned the corner? I think he'd work well, but they don't need a wide receiver. Now, the question here, Quincy, is was OBJ holding Baker back?
I think Baker got a hold of the offense late in the season, and now he's benefiting from it. And Odell was a victim of it all year where he just wasn't there. I mean, like we're seeing Baker check back on plays when he was not doing that in week 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. When Odell would be wide open, he just couldn't find him. And now that Baker's at that comfort of the system, Odell's just not out there to benefit from it. And also, can we just what is the urgency with the Odell stuff? What is the urgency at this point? We're not going to get rid of him in the offseason. Why would we get rid of him before we can prove he can walk right? You know what I mean? So this is something that's going to happen. If it happens, trade deadline next year. I'm not worried. If Odell is a problem for the offense, we'll just get rid of him during next year if it turns out to be. There's really no sense of urgency His trade value is as low as it's ever going to be right now.
Yeah.
So you might as well see if it's a problem for real once we get into the regular season. And then, if it's a problem, get rid of him. If it's not, then not. Why is there all this conversation about what the Browns are going to do with Odell Beckham at this? You'll figure it out next year. There's no reason to talk about it until then. Okay, if the Browns start out 1-3 and the offense looks terrible and Baker looks terrible next year and Odell's on the field and it's part of the reason why, all right, get rid of Odell. We'll entertain that then. But until then, I'm not entertaining any of the Odell trade stuff.
Yeah, I mean, they can get rid of him for free. It looks like, according to overthecap.com, is guaranteed.
No, we cannot. We have to give him his $12 million.
Really?
We would not save any money by cutting him. We have been through all of this
gotcha.
with him because he got injured this year, which guaranteed his salary next year. So, yeah. There's no reason. You can only trade him, and you're not going to trade him before you see him play a football game. So there's really no reason.
All right, one more before we get to Ace here. Ultimate Sports TV, $2 super chat. Appreciate it. I don't know, guys. Ravens choking big games, 31-27. I agree with that.
Let's be careful, though. We're the Browns. Like, you know
Right,
what I mean?
well,
I'm not going to ride that one until it's great. You feel me? Like, we know what the Ravens record has been on national TV this year, but I'm not going to ride them until, the season's over. Like, you know what I mean?
The unstoppable force versus the immovable object. And two teams that love to choke in big games. But Ace, want to get your thoughts on this game. How do you see it playing out?
Hold on one second, guys. That tastes pretty good. I think I'm taking the Browns in this game, and this is why. People are sitting here in 2020 forgetting completely about 2019 when the Browns traded for Odell Beckham Jr. and they loaded up on all of that talent. People were saying that the Browns were going to go to the Super Bowl. So why are we acting like the Browns are not a good team? I think mostly it's because of the previous history. Obviously, Freddie Kitchens last year, but this is a different team, right? This is what we thought that the Browns could be. But getting into analyzing the actual game, this is completely why. Week 1 was a long time ago. The Ravens are a completely different team. When you looked at the Ravens week 1, they looked unstoppable. They completely dismantled the Browns offensively. Lamar was looking like he was going to go for a back-to-back MVP kind of season. And we've seen lately that has slowed down. But here's the key. We talk about the trenches. Sonny, you talk about the trenches. The Titans aren't good at rushing the passer. That's why the Ravens' offensive line held up. The Bengals' offensive line held up against the Titans. It's nothing against the Ravens. But they have a man that I underrated severely when we kind of started this season in terms of the defensive line, and Myles Garrett. Who is going to stop Myles Garrett in this game? I have no confidence that the Ravens will be able to stop Myles Garrett. Nobody can stop Myles Garrett. He's one of the defensive players of the year. Unless you have an all-pro offensive lineman, no one is going to be able to stop Myles Garrett in this game. Sonny, you had to say something?
Yeah, I have been super critical of my Ravens O-line, but I will say, for whatever it's worth, they have been playing good. Not because of Dallas. The Pittsburgh one was a big test. Dupree got injured all the way to the end. We didn't have Lamar Jackson there being shifty, just dodging guys.
Okay.
And the defensive line for the Steelers, for the most part, got kept in check. Again, for me, I said this before, for me, Myles Garrett has been the defensive player of the year. For me.
But could it be the case that the Steelers could it be the case that the Steelers, knowing that RG3 was going to be the quarterback for that game, would be less aggressive in their pass rush and kind of hoping that RG3
Myles will be
The problem with that statement is when you play Lamar Jackson, that's usually what happens. Teams are less aggressive because when you go rushing the passer, you usually go wide and you leave a gap for Lamar to get open. When RG3 was there, RG3 was not gonna be like, oh, I have this super athletic ability to get out.
Just be real.
It's Myles Garrett. Not blitz Lamar Jackson. Hold on.
Myles Garrett. Let's just be real.
Back against Baltimore in the last 2 meetings. Just throwing that out.
Yeah, but we don't have Ronnie Stanley either. I'm gonna be fair. We don't have Ronnie.
Yeah, you don't have Ronnie Stanley. Right, That's my point. Like, who's gonna stop him now? I'm not saying that he's gonna wreck this game and have 3 sacks, but he's gonna get pressure on your quarterback. That's all I'm saying.
The impact of Myles Garrett isn't just what Myles Garrett is gonna do. That's one part of it. It's more or less how is it because when they played Miles the first time, they put 3 heads consistently on Myles Garrett. That was with Ronnie Stanley.
Mhm.
So you imagine it's going to be the same thing if, God forbid, it's Tyree Phillips and DJ Fluker who draw that assignment on the other side of the ball there, which Myles does move around. So you're going to see that. So how is that going to affect the run game? How is that going to affect their ability to go up the middle when they have to focus so much attention on Myles Garrett? I know TJ Watt is on the same plane as Myles Garrett is when we talk about the best defensive ends in football, but the amount of attention that teams put on Myles Garrett is a little bit different than the amount of attention that teams put on TJ Watt for very different reasons, because Myles is just more athletic and more slippery than TJ Watt. So that becomes an issue about how you're going to run the ball and everything else. I understand they've been playing much better. The offensive line for the Ravens has been playing much better. I kind of disagree with the ideal that teams would blitz Lamar more often. Like, was that what you were trying to say?
No, what I'm saying is the edge rushers, not necessarily the blitz through the middle, it's the edge. When you get an edge guy like Myles or TJ Watt, and they usually, when they rush the passer, sometimes they go wide, right? They bend and go wide and try to go to the strip sacks. When you do that against Lamar, and Lamar sees that C-gap getting open, he takes off, right? Yeah. With RG3, you don't have that problem. RG3 runs, but he's not in Lamar's level. My point with the Steelers game is, I can argue what you said about, yes, Myles Garrett and TJ Watt, they're similar, but I agree. Myles Garrett is better. But with the Steelers, when we play them, Bud Dupree all the way to the fourth quarter was on the other side, and those two are a problem. We acknowledge that the best
Bud Dupree is not Myles Garrett.
But I'm not saying that. I said if you had TJ Watt and Bud Dupree, you're worrying about 2 guys in the 2 edges versus Myles Garrett at 1 edge. That's all I'm saying. I'm not comparing Bud Dupree. I'm basically comparing Bud Dupree to the second guy of Cleveland Browns and Olivier Berner. That's what I'm doing. So I'm not saying my O-line is great. I'm just saying that I've been encouraged for their playing lately.
Right. I mean, I get that, but for me, it's not easy for me to say just because Pittsburgh didn't get to him that Myles Garrett isn't, because they run 2 completely different schemes. It's a different defense. So for me, I still worry about Myles Garrett. Now, on the flip side, for the Browns, I worry about Mark Andrews, right? Because we've all talked about Sendejo. I know Quincy said that they may have a linebacker on them. So we have to see what they're going to do there. But the other thing is this. I kind of talked about, like I said last time, the Browns came out the gates on fire. That offense was scoring 30, 40 points. They had a hiccup. They got right back on track. They just went out and scored 38 on the Titans, or however much more. I think it was 38. It may have been more than that. 41. Yeah. Right. So they're a team that puts up points in bunches. What have the Ravens struggled with? Putting points up in bunches. After being a team in 2019 that was one of the top scoring teams in the league. I'm not saying that they're going to light up the Ravens or anything like that, but Andy Dalton was making moves against this defense last week, which was surprising to me. I think Tony talked about it as well, like them making passing plays there. The other thing is this. I think Quincy hit on it as well. We keep talking about the trenches. The Cleveland Browns are so good because of their offensive line. It's hard to get to them. And when you can't get to them and Baker has time to let these plays progress, any quarterback with time is going to be able to try to pick apart your defense. Any person is going to be able to make plays, and he's going to do that. Yes, they don't have OBJ. They still have Jarvis Landry, who, Sonny, you complimented. That's going to be another key matchup, Marlon Humphrey versus him. But then you also have Donovan Peoples-Jones hitting you out of nowhere. You got Higgins there. You also have the tight end back. I just worry that if the Browns offense starts humming and they try to get to 30 in this game, I'm not so sure that the Ravens can keep up. Yes, they're going to have to watch out for Lamar. The Ravens have their season on the line in this game, but the Browns can also put the Ravens to bed. And this was a Browns team, I believe, a year ago when we kind of came before we started AFC North Talk. A lot of us were saying Browns are going to go 11-5. They're going to do this. They're going to do that. This is going to be a great game. I definitely see that happening. But I have to give the edge to the Browns because they are on fire right now, and I think that they can do what it takes to win this game. And we talk about the Ravens from a running standpoint. Yes, that may work. We'll have to see how that works against them. But the Browns can run too, so it's almost going to be an evenly matched game. But when I have to look at it from the trenches standpoint, I have to go with the Browns. And I'm going to pick the Browns. If you feel like it's an upset, I think Vegas has this as an upset. I'm going to go with the Browns on this one. Not to say that the Ravens are a bad team. It's just the trenches. Baker Mayfield, the way he's playing right now, the Browns, the points that they're putting up right now, it's just a bit of a stretch for me right now to definitively say the Ravens are going to win this game. They'll be in the game. It'll be a close game, but I've got the Browns winning this game. And since they said that I was drinking the Kool-Aid, I guess the Kool-Aid is here because everybody was drinking the Kool-Aid in 2019, not just me. I guess we just got all amnesia. We all got amnesia or something.
Get out of here, Tony. One question in general that I have, because like I know how Ravens fans are. They're like extremely arrogant that they're going to be able to beat the Browns because they beat them in week 1. Mm-hmm. But I wonder if that plays a factor, right? Because if you beat a team by like 32 points at the beginning of the year, and then you have to play them on a Monday Night Football game for your entire season, essentially, are the Ravens going to come into this game going, whew, cool, we're going to play the Browns, we're going to get back into the playoffs? Like, is that how they're going to come into this game? Or are they going to come into this game thinking that the Browns are an actual threat? Because when they don't think a team is a threat, they play like they did against the Cowboys, where it's just good enough to win against a 3-8 team, but not necessarily something that's going to beat the Cleveland Browns. But if they play like they did against Pittsburgh, they actually do have a strong chance at winning this game. You know, I was talking to Coach about this the other day. So I just wonder what Ravens team is going to come in there, because when you have a game you need to win, but also it's a team you beat, I don't know how much of an edge you're going to have there. And also the Browns, they really do want to avenge that loss. I mean, we saw how much they wanted to avenge the loss in Tennessee from 2019. This is from 2020, this loss here. So just because Dalton, they have a lot of more opportunities to clinch playoffs in this game, does not mean that they're not going to come into this with that intensity. I'm wondering what kind of intensity is Baltimore going to come in? Are they going to play like it's the Steelers, or are they going to come play like it's the Browns? And when the Baltimore comes in and plays like it's the Browns, they don't have a great record. You know, the only time I've seen them really turn it up against the Browns was the one game where like their playoff line was on the line literally in that game. And then even then it took to like the fourth quarter for them to truly turn it on. So I'm just wondering where Baltimore's mind is at, because, you know, for the Steelers, they definitely came out and played the Browns like they thought they were a threat and they destroyed them. But I'm just interested to see where Baltimore is with that.
So my answer to that will be a couple of things. First of all, the record of the Browns, right? They're not a pushover. Even though we beat them, they only have 3 losses. Second, also, if you're just looking at the schedule, as a player, you're like, that team is the best team. So we need to come to Baltimore. I think if we had the Steelers after the Browns, or Kansas City, or another top team, I can see your argument, Quincy. But looking at the schedule, they will be fools to think like literally the Browns are that team. That's what I've been saying for a couple of weeks. The Browns on the Baker scheme are that team in that schedule that can.
Here's why I bring this up, though. Here's why I bring this up, because in 2019, when they lost to the Chiefs, Lamar literally right after losing that game came off the field and was like, well, we got the Browns next week, so we're going to bounce. Like, pretty much was like, okay, well, we got the Browns. I'm looking forward to that. We're going to bounce back against them. And then they got rolled by the Browns that week. Yeah. It's like, is it, because this is something that takes a while to break. Is the Ravens thought in the head, like, yeah, they're 9-3 like everybody else. They're 9-3, but they're the Browns. You know what I mean? And
it's the schedule is what, in my opinion, dictates that they're not going to take them lightly, because the schedule tells you there's 9-3 teams, and then you get.
I get it. There's not a logical reason why they should do that, but Jim Harbaugh's history is what John Harbaugh's history is what it is, and it's not a history of like taking the Browns serious at any point. Now, there's not been a lot of reason to, quite frankly, but it's also not been like him to come into this. Like Mike Tomlin, he always takes the Browns seriously for whatever it is. He just doesn't like us for whatever reason. I hate Mike Tomlin for that. But, you know, other coaches, Marvin Lewis definitely was somebody who never took the Browns seriously. We would always come up on them sometimes here and there. And John Harbaugh, just somebody who just doesn't take them serious. So I wonder if that's going to linger in to the locker room where they're like, yeah, they're 9-3, but they're the Browns. We should beat them. We already beat them.
We have a backlog of super chats here, so I want to get to those real quick. Also, we have over 400 people watching live right now. Appreciate all of you who are watching. I really appreciate everyone who sent in a super chat. We're going to get to all of these before we go. But if you can hit the like button, that would really help us out, help spread the word about the show. Let's get to these super chats now. We got David, who may or may not be a Browns fan, who says Browns kicking those birds out and clinching on Monday. The Browns can clinch a playoff spot. Can they clinch actually if they win this game? They need other things to help. Okay.
No, they would clinch. 10 wins would clinch it.
Gotcha.
Records.
And this is in Cleveland, right? This game is in Cleveland.
It's in Cleveland, yeah. And then I should say the Steelers can also clinch the division if the Ravens were to win and the Steelers were to upset the Bills on Sunday night, then the Steelers could clinch the division. Although I think the Steelers may have to wait a week for that one. Misfit Culture TV writes in, I'll raise your argument, SCG. Let's not forget if Miles gets double teamed, Richardson, Vernon, Porter, Ogunjobi will all get left in one-on-one. And Sonny, it's a good point because that has been the weakness for the Ravens here. Really, not so much on the edges, but in the interior.
I agree, but I feel disgusted because I keep praising the Steelers. The Steelers' interior D-line is very strong as well. I mean, the only reason I brought up the whole Steelers comparison is not because I'm trying to diminish Myles Garrett. I have acknowledged I think he should be the Defensive Player of the Year because the rest of the pieces of the Steelers are better than that D-line for the Browns. That's all. Quincy has brought it up. If Myles Garrett's not there, that D-line is not great. But Dupree's not there. It's a hit. If TJ Watt is not there, there is a big hit, but not as big of a hit than when Myles Garrett's not there because the rest of the D-line is better. All I'm saying is, not that my O-line is great because we are hammered with injuries, is they have played good. Look, since they benched Garrett, the center played better. Even the backup center played good. It was against the Steelers. He played good. He actually played good. I actually like that kid. So the O-line, for whatever reason, maybe because we're running the ball more, which is what we should be doing, has been playing better. That's all I'm saying. That the O-line should not be, in my opinion, playing as good as they are, but they have been playing better.
We have one here, Ace, from Rich, who said, thanks for the likes on my injury updates. He's the one that sent us the tweets before the games. I do appreciate those injury updates every week. And then we have Robert writes in, Quincy, do you remember the 1980 Cleveland Brown Cardiac Kids? I do not because I was -5. Yeah.
The Cardiac Kids it's spelled with the K, by the way. I'm sorry, I'm a stickler for that, but it's spelled with the K. Cardiac Kids, double K there, and it was actually the 70s with Brian Sipe. I believe in 77, the Encyclopedia of Knowledge. I am in 77. Brian Sipe won the NFL MVP. I think Brian Sipe also had a good career with the USFL or the World Football League, one of those two dead leagues in that 80s, 90s era. But yeah, the Cardiac Kids were a good team. Red Right 88 kind of ended all that. That was when Ozzie Newsome was a tight end for the Cleveland Browns. I think also Paul Warfield, or I think he might have got traded for Mike Phillips before that era. Just I know too much about the Browns' old history because for a while it was really the only good thing to learn about the Browns was that. But yeah, Cardiac Kids, I remember them. This team, people say this Browns team is like the Cardiac Kids because they play a lot of close games. No, not the same. They're not playing from behind most of the time. They're just like they got a 10-point lead and then they just like let it get to 3 and then they just close it out. So it's much different, much less heart pounding, honestly.
Before we go, let me give I'll give my thoughts here on Browns and Ravens. Week one seems like forever ago. I mean, these are completely different teams. I'm going to read you 2 stat lines here. Okay. 58% completion percentage, 381 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Here's another stat line. 71% completion percentage, 513 yards, 6 touchdowns, no interceptions. Now, the first one might sound like, hey, that's like Lamar Jackson in the last couple of weeks, and it's Baker Mayfield. The other one's Baker Mayfield in the last couple of weeks. No, actually, the first one is Baker Mayfield's last 2 games against Cleveland, or against Baltimore, excuse me. And then the 513 yards, 6 touchdowns, that's Lamar in his last 2 games against Cleveland. It seems like, again, these 2 teams have just completely flipped, especially on the offensive side. This is a team in Baltimore that has had so much trouble against better teams, really against anybody that isn't Dallas, moving the football. And then you look at Cleveland, and they're rolling right now offensively. They look as good as they've looked all year, and that's without OBJ. So this is Baker versus Lamar. Right? I know that it's a stupid thing to bring up because they're not going to be on the same field together, but someone's getting a statement win. They are. Right, no one's going to look back at this game and say, "Yeah, sure, Lamar beat the Browns' butt," right? Or yeah, Baker beat the Ravens' butt, right? I mean, if Baker wins this game, he's going to clinch a playoff spot for the Browns for the first time since 2002, I believe, back when the Browns were what was the quarterback's name back then? It was Tommy Maddox versus
it's Kelly Holcomb.
Kelly Holcomb. That's
Burger
him.
King
Great
burger
game.
named after him.
That's him. Chris Fuamatu Mafala aimed Zerway. Great game. Remember it like it was
Dennis
yesterday.
Northcutt dropped that ball. They would have clinched.
Yeah. Hank Poteet, the terrible cornerback for the Steelers that kept the Browns in that game.
And I forget who it was. I think it was Hines Ward on Mic'd Up has the famous quote when the Browns are in the middle of dumping this game. They were up by like 20 points in halftime. And Hines was jumping up and down. He goes, same damn Browns. They the same damn. And I remember that just has been tattooed in my head. That's why I don't like Hines Ward. As much as I respect Hines Ward, every time I close my eyes and think about the Steelers in the playoffs, I think of Hines Ward jumping up and down in stupid Heinz Field, talking about some same damn. And it was exactly what we did. The same old choking dog, but you know that those 2 decades.
So look, if Baker Mayfield comes out and clinches the first playoff spot for the Browns in 18 years, it's a huge win for him, right? No one's going to downplay that. And the same thing for Lamar, right? If Lamar Jackson go into Cleveland on Monday night, win this football game, and unless he were to drop a stupid one between now and the end of the season, that he will likely get the Ravens into the playoffs after being a 6-5 football team. So either way, I think state and win here. And it is cliche to talk about turnovers and say, this game's going to be decided on turnovers. But, these are 2 quarterbacks who at times, especially in big games, have been turnover machines. You have 2 defenses that have been very opportunistic this year. The Browns have forced 20 turnovers. The Ravens have forced 18. So I do think you could, ignore the score. Just look at the turnover battle. Whoever wins the turnover battle, I imagine, wins this football games. The Browns have really struggled to stop the Ravens in this matchup in the past. But like Quincy said, this is a completely different matchup today. I mean, this Ravens offense is not built the same as it was back in week 1. And so I do question whether or not they're going to have the kind of success that they did. The Browns are going to have to be more disciplined in their linebacking core, but they switch things up. And the defense that took the field in week 1 is not the defense that's taking the field here in week 14. And then you look at what Baker Mayfield's been able to do. And look, this is a team that runs the football, but Baker Mayfield last week looked as good as any quarterback in the National Football League. He's got a tough test going up against this secondary. It's a good secondary in Baltimore, but I'm really, really intrigued to watch this one. Here's my pick for the game. I'm gonna go hungry dog runs faster. I'm gonna pick Baltimore. I think Baltimore needs this one more. They want this one more. Not to say that Cleveland's looking past anybody. I'm not saying that, but this is a playoff game for the Baltimore. This is losing you or out. For the Browns, obviously this would be a big win for them, and this is a signature win. But they're coming off of a signature win against Tennessee, so I'll take Baltimore in a close. Remember, Baltimore does have a special teams edge in this one. If it comes down to field goals, comes down to field position, Baltimore's got the better special teams. That may also play a factor in this game, but I can't wait to watch me a marquee matchup.
Let me be clear here too. I want the Ravens to show up at full force. Like the Browns need this before, let's assume that they win a game down the line and actually do clinch this whole playoff situation. Now, nothing is for sure in football, but let's just assume the Browns are going to need this kind of preparation, this kind of a moment, this kind of a game to truly prepare for playing playoff football. I know it's the old cliche of, you're not ready to play playoff football, but we have seen what it's like when a really good team takes you deadly serious with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And that did not go well for the Cleveland Browns. This is a chance to right that wrong, right?
Yeah.
Though there's no chance that the Ravens, and I know I talked about it, maybe they might come in thinking it's the Browns are going to get this, is going to be an easy road back. But more than likely, you would assume, based on just basic common sense, they're going to come into this game playing like it's a playoff game. This is a Ravens team that, they haven't won a playoff game, but they definitely played in the playoff games, so they know what that intensity is like. And the Browns need to be able to feel that, absorb that, and play with it, because that's the one thing they have not done. You can say the Tennessee game, was a statement game, and it was, because you need to beat a good team. But I want to see them, when a team desperately needs it against them, that they can show up and win that game. Because, let's not forget, going into the bye week, we were wondering if this Browns team was soft for that very reason, because whenever a team put it on them, they shivered away. So I want to see what the Browns do when a team puts it on them. Are they going to rise to that moment, or are they going to shrivel down into a ball and get beat up and kicked on like they did against the Steelers and Ravens? This is an excellent time to see how far they've grown in that aspect. And I'm excited to see it. So, no way do I think this is going to be a blowout, or do I even, I want it to be a blowout for the Browns. Let me be real here. But, I would appreciate if this was a close game, that the Browns can win out, because I think that would mean more than if you just blew out the Ravens and the Ravens just didn't take you serious and it blew up in their face. If you could just beat the Ravens and the Ravens are giving you everything you got, I'm going to be much more encouraged from that than I would be if the Ravens just, beat themselves or something like that.
I like the guy in chat who just said Ravens are going 7-9 this year. They'll tank after they lose this game.
Oh, don't do that.
I did that. Also, like the guy who says, "Who have the Browns beat the Titans?" That's it. Did the Ravens beat the Titans?
Nope.
And by the way, the Browns also beat the Colts. We just forget that they beat the Colts.
They beat the Colts too.
They beat the entire AFC South. Which, by the way, I got something to say to what's the guy's name? Charles in here. He always has something to say about the Browns. But like, this dude told me that the Texans were gonna blow us out when the Steelers beat the Texans. I was like, I don't know how impressive of a win that is. It's like, oh, the Texans, they're gonna show you, they're gonna beat the Browns by 35. We swept that whole division. Did everybody else sweep that whole division? I know the Bengals didn't. I know the Ravens didn't. Did the Steelers sweep that division? I think they're
TBD. I'll let you know in a couple weeks when we play the Colts.
Oh yeah, well, they still got a test there. But yeah, they swept that entire division. Like, whatever. Wins, and I just hate the college football arguments that have seeped into pro football, where it's like, how quality of a win it was.
Quality wins. Yeah, strength the schedule, take the victory.
Until we have Andrew Luck's dad picking who makes the playoffs or not, then I really could care less what the quality of it. What's your record at the end of the year? That's what matters. You know what nobody's going to remember in 5 years? How good the teams were that you beat. Nobody cares how good the teams were that you beat. It only matters what your record is. You don't go, we went 7-9, but boy, we beat a good Pittsburgh team by 20.
In a couple of years, old people remember us who won the Super Bowl.
Who cares? Like, you want to be the Raiders who beat the Chiefs and then almost lose to the winless Jets? Like, do you want to be that team, or do you want to be a team with a more secure record and a more secure playoff situation? But those whole takes just drive me crazy, where people are like, "Oh, these wins don't matter. The Steelers they're 11-0 is pointless because they lost."
Worst 11-0 team ever. Worst 11-0 team of all time. All right, we got a couple more super chats. I love it. I love to be in the worst 11-0 team.
You know what you don't want to be? The worst 0-16 team ever, right? Which the Browns could have been in the running for, even though I think they were the best 0-16 team ever. And that does not make me feel any better. It makes me feel worse.
All right, got a couple more super chats to get to. Robert, my bad on the that Cardiac Kids were a start. What was a great decade for the Browns, especially with Bernie Kosar. Cleveland will make the AFC Championship game this year. I could see them certainly making it to the divisional round. The championship game means they might have to go through Kansas City. That's a tough test for them. But, you run the ball in the playoffs. You can run the ball in January. You can hold, time possession, keep Mahomes off the field.
It might sound crazy, but I'd much rather play Kansas City if you're the Browns than the Steelers, just because of matchups and how the Steelers kind of line up. Yeah. And the Steelers, you're the Browns. Like, it's just a mental thing. I would want to delay that one as long as possible. But again, I'm not trying to play Kansas City. My worry, Quincy, is that the Steelers are going to blow home field advantage, and it's going to end up being a situation where the Steelers could potentially play the Browns 2 weeks in a row. Although I guess they'd have to be the 4 seed in order for that to happen, because the Browns will be the 5 seed. But we'll see how the rest of the season plays out. Jake writes in, Stefanski is the missing piece to the Browns' success. His play calling this year has been incrementally surprising. I agree. Look, here's what I said about Stefanski going in. I said this is a team that's going to struggle early on, but they will find themselves as the year went on. The only difference here is that they did not struggle early, right? I mean, this is a team that came out, played relatively well to start the year outside of week 1, and now they're rolling on all cylinders, and that's why I think Stefanski should be coach of the year, at least in the runnings at some point. Do you have any more super chats to get to?
I believe that was the last one. I think so.
All right. Well, we appreciate everyone who writes in with their super chats. Thank you so much. We love reading your comments here on air. We have over 400 people watching still. If you can hit that like button, like I said, really does help the show. Before we get out of here, Ace, let people know where they can find your work.
You can find me at New Stripe City, also on Twitter at New Stripe City. That's where you can find me. Of course, here, AFC North Talk for sure.
Quincy, how about you?
You can find me on youtube.com/Quincy Carrier, also on Twitter at Quincy. And you'll find me leaving Marquise Brown alone this week. I'm not going to, I'm not going to do that. Because
leave Brown alone too.
Huh? No. I'm going to poke that bear, baby. But with the Marquise Brown one, it just seems very Marquise Brown to have like a 130-yard game randomly against the Browns, just so everybody on Twitter can bog down my mentions for 2.5 hours. So you know what? Hollywood Brown, Soldier Boy Brown, because he said he was a soldier. That's not a dig. I'm just giving him his credit. You know, he's a soldier boy. You know, I think he's going to actually have a 60-yard, 1 touchdown game. Think Hollywood Brown? Hey, if you got him on your fantasy team, start Hollywood Brown. Start him.
Don't never do that.
Start Hollywood Brown. Make him your wide receiver number 1 this week, because if anything has ever been true, this is where Quincy gets a little bit of comeuppance here, right? Like this is where it blows up in my face. So,
hold on, wait. Is Hollywood Brown even rostered in fantasy? Like, do people actually have him in fantasy? I'm not serious. This is a guy who's like 4 catches, 30 yards.
I'm sure Sonny drafted him because he was really big on the Hollywood.
He was on the Hollywood train.
He's definitely on Joe Nobu's team. He's got to be. Like I don't know.
I actually had Nick Chubb in one of my teams.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Nick Chubb is kind of your daddy at some points during these games here. Nick Chubb has kind of been really good against the Ravens, much like Derrick Henry. Now, Derrick Henry is your father, but you know, we'll see what happens against the run there. But you know, I'm leaving Hollywood Brown alone. Start him on your fantasy team. He might get 15 points this week. This might be the only week to have Hollywood Brown on your team because boy, you know,
man, woo.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're going to all tweet me, by the way. So I'm just preparing for it. Hollywood Brown's going to have a big game. Everybody's going to be like, oh, he's Soldier Boy now, Tyreek now. Yeah, this is going to be the game. This is going to be the one where he has an explosion and gets over, 600 yards for the season? You know?
I think we have a super chat coming in here in a second.
Yeah, I saw it already.
Yeah. This is a reverse jinx. Let's understand what he's doing. Okay, this is everyone has been accused of reverse jinx all year. That was a reverse jinx.
I'm honestly afraid of it. Because I have been so hard on this dude.
He's putting it out there so it won't happen.
I called him Kwame Brown, Tyreek Hill, Hollywood, Holly No Good. I went on like a 10-minute epic rant one. Like I am desperately worried that this is like, sports universe is like, nah, dog, he's gonna get 200 against the Browns. Like this is what's going to happen.
Did he torch Ohio State when he was in college? What this dude did to you?
No,
like, I think critical.
It was not bad. You know, Baker torched Ohio State. Hollywood Brown, I don't even know if he had a great game that week. But you know, I don't know when Hollywood Brown really torched anybody in college other than like other Big 12 teams, but he wasn't even that great. CeeDee Lamb was always the guy at Oklahoma, but you know, you drafted him in the first round. Would never make sense to me. A.J. Brown was there. DK Metcalf was there. How many guys were there?
I mean, he was the first wide receiver drafted in that draft.
That's almost as bad as John Ross that one year where the Bengals took John Ross in the top 5. It was like Patrick Mahomes right after that.
He traded back.
Yeah.
He traded back, and he was the 20-something pick. John Ross was what, top 5, top 7?
I remember I said he was going to be John Ross. I said that when you guys picked him. I was like, John Ross 2.0.
It's okay. The Browns have drafted in the 2014 draft. I'll always say this. They drafted the 2 worst players in the draft with the 8th and 22nd pick in a draft that is historically loaded. Like Aaron Donald went 10th in this draft. That's how loaded this draft was. And it's not like he slid that far behind. You know, Odell was in that draft, and we took Justin Gilbert and Johnny Manziel, 2 people who are not just bad. Justin Gilbert so bad that the Steelers like got a whiff of him for a week and just, oh God, get him out of here. Like, man didn't wake up on time for team meetings. He was awful. So, you know, we all have our draft blunders. I like how Zim was talking about Tim Couch for whatever reason on Twitter with me earlier today. Like, y'all didn't draft Achilles Smith in the same draft. You know what I mean? We both didn't draft Donovan McNabb. We're both not good franchises at that point. So it was just an interesting comment. But, you know, we'll get to that when we on Ace's channel eventually here. Ace is going to set that up. But yeah, let me start taking on this time.
Sonny, let people know where they can find your work. And is there any player you want to reverse jinx?
No, I'm going to stay away from that shit. So SEU Sport everywhere.
Myles Garrett. Don't. You said Myles Garrett wasn't going to do
9 sacks. Myles Garrett's going to have 9 sacks in this game.
No, I have a lot of.
No way TJ Watt can win Defensive Player of the Year after the performance Myles Garrett has against.
I have a lot of respect. No, the only take like that I will say is no way Big Ben will win the comeback player of the year after Alex Smith did what he did with the bloody sucks. Like the bloody suck was just
What's wrong with his leg? That did not work.
Anyway, you can find me at CG Sports everywhere: YouTube, Twitter, IG, Facebook. I do a IG live on halftime. So if the Browns are winning by a lot, you can go follow me in IG and you can just roast me while I'm doing the live IG. And yes, it takes me a little bit in that first quarter to tweet a lot because I have to wake up at 1 in the effing morning. So I take a 2-hour nap before I watch these games. So yeah, at the beginning of the game, you usually don't see me tweet as much. And then, I kept going. But anyway, I think it's going to be a great game, by the way. I think it's going to be a great game against two great teams, in my opinion.
You can follow me on Twitter at Steeler Country. You can find me on Locked On Steelers every Tuesday with my friend Christopher Carter. And you can find me here Tuesdays and Thursdays, 5:45 p.m. Eastern time for AFC North Talk. And I got to say, if you just start any bill you want fantasy this week, you start all the bills. I mean, I don't know how the Steeler defense is going to be able to stop pretty much any bill you have. Just, you know what I mean? Like their third string running back. Yeah, put him into, what's his name? Zach Moss. Yeah, go for it.
If you have Stephon Diggs and Hollywood Brown, you're going to win your game.
Listen, you literally cannot lose. You cannot lose. All right, that'll do it for us today. Thank you all for watching and listening, and we'll be back Tuesday, 5:45 p.m. Eastern time for our review of Week 14 in the AFC.
Have you ever Are you listening? Damn.